One of the tough things about running a contracting business is when things go wrong on the job. Now, despite our best efforts, mistakes happen, and the client is not happy, and they want things fixed, and we know it's going to cost us plenty. Don't miss this episode where we discuss how if you don't understand the psychology of dealing with unhappy clients, you'll make a mess of trying to fix things. And we'll outline a clear 5-step process for turning your worst disasters into clients who are raving fans. How can I get out of this with the least possible damage?
A sinking feeling in your stomach where you're just gutted that things are going that way and you're worried about,
How much is this going to cost?
damn, how am I going to deal with this?
A residential job that goes bad, that's one job, but if this goes bad with your good business-to-business clients, you can lose a great client. Tens, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars of work.
And it's time, money and frustration that they have to spend again.
Because I'm still flipping angry about it. The things that they tried to fix, it just made me angrier because I knew it was a joke.
Oh, well, you must be really off. Yeah, I am.
You can take those dreadful situations and hopefully turn those people into raving fans, which is definitely possible because when you do this well, people really, really appreciate it. Welcome to the Profitable Tradie Podcast. Tony Fraser-Jones, your host, with my good mate Phil Smith, co-host. How you going, Chief?
Always great, always great.
Mistakes. Let's dig into the mistakes.
Oish.
What are we on about today?
Well, we're talking about that dreadful moment where you set the phone call down from either your team or from a client and they've just called you with a problem. And you feel that initial frustration, that dread, that sinking feeling in your stomach where you're just gutted that things are going that way and you're worried about, damn, how am I going to deal with this? Man, I need to make a really awkward phone call now, and you're sweating and you're just not feeling good about it at all. The client is angry, they're upset, they're really, really let down, and your team may or may not even be taking responsibility for this, but one way or another, you're feeling absolutely gutted about it.
Yeah, and you're like, how am I going to fix this? And if you're honest, if you're like most of us, you're like, how much is this going to cost?
Oh, yeah.
How much is it actually going to cost me? And if you're really ultra honest, often the thought is, how can I get out of this with the least possible damage, the least possible cost, the least possible effort to make it right? And it's a very important thought process that goes on. And what you've got to understand is that the psychology of how your client feels is actually quite different. And it's a lot to that. So if you want to put it right, you want to have turn it into a good experience or make it the best possible situation that it can be. You've really got to understand how the client thinks about this and, more importantly, how they feel about it, because that's huge.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to dig into today, that psychological process that goes on for the client. And then we'll nut out 5 key steps to actually put this right, which will mean you can take those dreadful situations and hopefully turn those people into raving fans, which is definitely possible because when you do this well, people really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure you have a story to kick us off.
I do have a story. It's about a project that we had done, actually. We were building our own home, and it was when the driveway was laid, the concrete was laid. There was some pressure to get this on. It was nearly Christmas. We wanted to get into the house before Christmas, as everyone does. And the concrete contractor poured the driveway. Unfortunately, it was quite a big driveway, and they did it in summer. It was warm, and the driveway cured too quickly. They weren't able to work the concrete well enough, and basically the result was a poor result. Lots of lumps and bumps in the concrete, and subsequently it's cracked quite badly along the expansion cuts. Not a great result at all. Kind of ugly. And look, we were really upset about that. The driveway is something you use all the time, and I still see it every day now, and it still frustrates me now. And to be honest, the concrete contractor, who I'd love to name and shame, but I'm not going to, but I really would love to because I'm still flipping angry about it, did a terrible job of trying to put it right. They sort of tried to get away with it with the least possible fuss. And so they tried to grind off some of the rough edges of the concrete. It was a joke.
Yeah.
And the things that they tried to fix, it just made me angrier because I knew it was a joke. Really, to make it right, it kind of needed to be ripped up and start again. I understand that's a big cost, but super frustrating. And I still look at it today, and I'm frustrated about it because it's just kind of not awesome. And now, several years down the track, we're actually looking at grinding it and putting a different finish on it to actually hide some of those cracks and the imperfections. So that's going to cost us several thousand, tens of thousands of dollars more as well, from a job that should have really been done right the first time.
Yeah, not to mention, if you can't hear it in Tony's voice, that there's the physical side of repairing that, but the mental and emotional side is clearly not been dealt with at all because you're clearly still angry and upset. This was a while ago, so physically, your driveway is the craters of the moon, But mentally,
Emotionally, I'm the
mentally
creators
and
of the moon as well.
emotionally, you're also the creators of the moon. So things were not dealt with right, and I think that's the point of today's episode. And if we don't deal with our clients well when things go wrong, because they do go wrong, they do.
With construction, they go wrong. In contracting, they're going to go wrong. That's what happens.
Things go wrong, and look, it's not because of it's not always even substandard workmanship. The thing is things go wrong, and when they go wrong, we run into some problems.
We do. Well, the first thing is you can potentially just have ongoing dramas with the client. It goes from bad to worse. A difficult situation gets absolutely toxic, and it can take a lot of time and attention. It can lead to warranties, legal blowback, court proceedings, a whole bunch of stuff. And fundamentally, you've got an unhappy client, which is not ideal. There's the emotional flipping drama in your own head, because this is never fun dealing with people who are angry and frustrated. And there's all the flow-on effects, which I think are very important for you as a business owner. There's the reputational damage. There's the referrals that are not going to come. And, if it goes real bad, you can actually get taken apart online as well with reviews that could potentially be damaging when you're trying to get more work as well. And, if you think about a homeowner, a residential job that goes bad, that's one job. But if this goes bad with your good business-to-business clients, you can lose a great client. They're gone, and that could be tens, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars of work over the lifetime of your business if you don't do this right.
Yeah, that's it. Not just this job, but all the jobs to come. So on the other hand, if we can handle these situations well, because as we said, they do happen. So if we've got a really good process for handling this well, big upside.
Yeah, it's the flip side, isn't it? It's you can get the client back on side. The client will feel heard and understood, and you feel like that the client will feel like you've got their back. You can repair the relationship, and so get it on a positive spin. And then you have all the flow-on effects. So you can generate clients for life. You can generate the referrals, because if you do this a great job, people are more likely to refer, and you get positive reviews and all the reputational advantages that come from just doing the right thing. And then with your business-to-business clients, your other contractors and commercial clients, you can hold on to those clients for the long term. And that's important. Often we try and take the shortcut or the cheap option, or the option that's just enough to get by with our good clients, and that can cost us so much money. Sometimes it's better to spend the money and actually, sustain the relationship. And if you do this well, obviously the stress levels for you go down. You feel like you're, doing the right thing, which I think all of us want to do. Yeah. Even when it's hard.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into this. I think probably the best place to start is the psychology, right?
The psychology is huge. And this is not the psychology in your head. That's important, but the psychology in your head will change when you understand the psychology of the client.
Yeah, understanding is key.
Yeah, understanding is key. And if you want to understand someone, you want to walk a mile in their shoes, or probably a few miles in their shoes, because you actually understand their experience. So what we want to understand and dig into is what is actually going on in the mind and the emotions of the client. How does it actually impact them? And the impacts are a fair bit more than would at first seem what they are.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you've really got to understand what this actually costs the client. And I think the first thing that we think of when we think about what it costs a client is the money, right? I mean, there's the actual amount of money they paid you to do the job. But it's so much deeper than that. Firstly, there's the time. So obviously, you had time invested in this job, but the client did too. And if you think about that, it might be that they had to take time off work to actually be there to, let you in and get you at the job. It could be that they had to, put off, if you did it, say, in a weekend or after hours, maybe they put off extracurricular activities or didn't go to their kid's sports game, or maybe they didn't go golfing with their mates, or whatever it is. The point is that they invested their time to be there and allow you to do this job as well. And now that's gone. Second thing as well,
and they have to spend it again.
Well, they have to spend it again too. And then on top of that, there's the opportunity cost of what they could have done for that time. For example, if I took time off leave, there's annual leave, but there's also loss of production from the time that I wasn't at work. So the thing is, there's a lot more cost when you also take in the time. Next thing from there, you've also got the frustration, and this is absolutely massive and something I think we don't often think enough about. It's really, really easy for us to think, yeah, the client's frustrated, but bugger them. They don't get how hard it is for me. But the thing is, you have to understand how hard it is for them, because this is extremely frustrating. They've built up, they've got a project in mind or a job they want done. They have an outcome they want, and that probably means a lot to them. And now that hasn't happened, and so they feel really let down. They feel really frustrated. They feel hurt. They've spent their time and money and effort, and they haven't got what they wanted. And that was probably something they really, really wanted.
Well, that unmet expectations is the cause of all problems in relationships, and when they're expectation is not met, that's a real letdown. It's a real significant cost, which they associate with you.
Yeah, and next thing there's the inconvenience. So like we said, there's the time and the money and the frustration. All of that is a huge inconvenience, and it's time, money, and frustration that they have to spend again. There's phone calls they have to have with you, and you don't want to have the phone call with them. Trust me, they don't want to have it with you either. And so the thing is all of this is an inconvenience. It's all taking time and headspace away from other things that they want to do with their life. They wanted a project that was going to be nailed so they could have this great outcome, they could get on with their life. And now not only did they not get outcome one, but they also can't get on with their life. This is an ongoing problem above their head. And if you think about other types of inconvenience, maybe if you're working for, more business to business work, for example, you're working with a builder, you're working on a new build, you don't nail your part of that build, and now every other part of that build is held up while you redo your bit. So there's massive, massive inconvenience to the client that, that got you in the first place. And, like I said, this all eats into their headspace. So, like I mentioned earlier, not only do they have the drama of this now, but that drama will be ongoing, and it hangs over them like a black cloud, really. They'll be up at night thinking about, geez, I've got to meet with that person again tomorrow. Man, I don't enjoy that person. And not only is it not done, but it's not going to be done. It's not going to be out of my life anytime soon. And that plays on their mind and eats up all of the joy and happiness from the future time that shouldn't be there.
Anytime a client is discussing the disappointment or the frustration they have with your service delivery, that's a big problem because that is really eating them up. And there's ongoing frustration, like in our situation with the driveway. Every time I look at the driveway, well, I try not to look at it. In fact, obviously I need some counselling with this flipping driveway, but just...
Tony, I'll be honest, I've noticed it too, bro.
Yeah, that's right. That explains everything, right?
Bet you didn't want to hear that.
No, that's right. But it's an ongoing issue, and it was not put right, and it's not going to be put right, and so it's a frustration. I mean, if you think about it from a project perspective, let's say you're a plumbing contractor and you put a bathroom in or renovate a bathroom. Maybe it's on the second story, and one of your techs, your tradespeople, doesn't connect the drains up properly, and someone has a shower, bath, or whatever, and it leaks all down. Well, there's a whole lot of work to do there, right? You've got
coming through the walls. It's
coming through the
walls, the ceiling of the downstairs.
Yeah, you're thinking about the client. They're like, well, what's going on here? They've got to figure out what's going on, and then they call you, and you've got to come and look at it.
Now the drywall's getting wet and soggy.
The drywall's going to get wet, so they've got to pull that all out. They had people coming to stay. They'd actually done the bathroom because they wanted to show it off to their family and friends, and now that's not going to be ready and they can't use it.
Not to mention they're embarrassed. They have to tell their friends and family, like, oh yeah, sorry, the bathroom's no good, you can't get in there. And then the friend goes, didn't you just remodel that bathroom? And you're like, yes. Oh well, you must be really pissed off. Yeah, I am.
So there can be a whole lot going on, and then there's the obviously the time that you said they've got to be at home to let people in and out, or set up a key for people to come in and out, and you've got to redo the project, all that sort of stuff. So there's a whole lot of knock-on effects. Yeah. It's not just the cost. And
well, look, they were going to go away on a holiday just after that, but now they can't go away because they need to be there to let you in, and so now the holiday's put off. There's so many knock-on effects. It's just it's outrageous.
And the thing is, as the service provider, you want to understand that what actually are the implications. I think that's a big part of it. So there's a lot going on. Yeah. Below the surface, we're complicated people, right? Clients, complicated.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing is that client being complicated as they are, often, the sorry is not enough. They want to punish you.
They do.
They want you to feel what they're feeling, because that frustration, that headache, they're feeling it, and they want you to be there in that space with them, so to know you're taking it seriously, really. Yeah.
If you think about society, when someone commits a crime, maybe someone defrauds someone else of a bunch of money, runs some sort of scam. Well, it's fine if they pay the money back and they say sorry. That's all good. But society deems that that's a problem, and that they should be punished because it's not good. And so they get sent to jail.
Yeah.
And so there's a whole lot more that happens to that person than just putting it right. There's a sanction on them for that, and that's how your client feels. They want a sanction. They want some punishment. They want some revenge, basically, or something to really right. It's like punitive damages in a court, and so that's part of the psychology that goes on here. They also basically want a public flogging.
Yeah,
and what that means is in these situations, it's really helpful to take what I call the low road, to take the low road immediately, and that means basically for you to say mea culpa, which is I did bad, my fault, through my fault was what mea culpa means. And you lay yourself at their feet and beg for mercy, which is basically like, we did bad. This is terrible. I'm so sorry this happened. Look, this is the most important thing. I'm taking this so seriously. So they know, the client knows that you're really taking it seriously. You have to kind of put yourself at their feet. The public flogging is what it's about. So then the client, they're likely to say, oh, no, it's not that bad. They take the high road then. But if you take the high road, they'll take the low road.
Well, they have to, because you're already on the high road.
If you take the high road and you kind of try and paper it over and don't really do a good job at it, they'll go really dark on you.
Yeah.
They'll
So you
go
gotta
really
flip
low level. So you've got to flip that. So if you take that low road, then they'll take the high road and try and pull you up. That's just the way it works. It's a psychological kind of thing that happens.
And I think from there we got to be putting it right. And so I think where I want to go with that is, well, what does putting it right even mean? And I think the real key is that you're going to have to go further than you think. And I think the really first thing here to consider is, when these complaints come through, or, something hasn't gone right, there's a real knee-jerk reaction for us to think, bugger that person, they don't understand what it's like for me.
Or it's not that bad.
Yeah, it's not that bad. And so we can be in denial about, the problem that we've created, but we can also, be a little bit defensive and even angry towards the client for being so ungrateful. But the reality is that if we can see what it's like having the shoe on the other foot, and we can really empathize and understand their situation, everything going through their head, I think that that's the first thing you need to do to put it right. And then you need to show them that you understand. And so, one of the first things I think that's really, really important, and we'll get into a process in a minute, but you don't just have to see their point of view. You have to show them that you see it. And I think sometimes acknowledging all of the ways they must not just be feeling in terms of the price and the time, but the way they must be feeling in terms of the frustration and everything like that, that's really important to them, because they feel seen and heard. And I think often when we want to put it right, our brain's going to go to things like, redoing the job, and it's going to go to, what we can do in terms of money or reimbursement or whatever, but we think of all the physical, tangible sides of putting it right, but we miss that mental, emotional side of putting it right, which is what you're talking about with your driveway, right? So even if they rip the whole driveway up and put it down again, that's not enough to make you feel better about it. So that must be addressed as well.
Yeah, well, an apology would have been good. But anyway, we're moving on from that.
Well, it sounds like you're not, but
yeah,
anyway.
that's right. Like you said, you've got to go further than you think, and putting it right is a bigger concept than just reinstating what was supposed to be done. And so that's massive. So there's a compensation part of it, and then there's a punishment part of it, and that kind of adds up to what you need to do to actually put it right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's important. And then back from our perspective, I guess as a service provider, as a contractor, there's obviously the real cost to you. There's the cost of actually redoing the job, the opportunity cost. There's the reputational cost. There's the rework cost, all that sort of stuff, the reviews. And so if you don't get it right, there can be way more cost than you thought. So you might feel like you're just saving on getting it done the cheapest way, but you've got to think big picture long term about all those other things, which are kind of hidden costs, intangible costs, but they're very real costs.
Well, often they're bigger than the initial cost that was tangible. So for example, in this case, think about that concrete contractor with your driveway. It's like, if right at the start they had been able to deal with the mental and emotional side of it for you, and they'd ripped the whole driveway up and put it back down again, it would have been extremely expensive. But here we are right now talking on a podcast with thousands of listeners about this particular contractor, and it's like, honestly, a lot of people would have named the contractor, and at that point, you think about the damage that would be done to that business. So, the real world version of this is someone writes a bad review, and now everybody sees that you did this really, really bad thing, all the likes, and then you lose so much future work. So it's like, yeah, they would have had an expensive cost to put this right the first time, but they're potentially losing a lot of work because you might not name them on the podcast, but you might name them over a coffee or a beer with a mate.
The general contractor who did the work actually subcontracted this concrete contracting business, and they've never used them again.
Yeah, so think of all of the lost work.
Hundreds and hundreds of thousands. This building contractor does a lot of work.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of cost.
So actually, it would have been far cheaper overall for them to have just dealt with this well the first time, and I think that's what we can often miss. So let's get into the actual process of how to fix this.
First thing is number one, you need an immediate acknowledgement and apology, like an unreserved immediate acknowledgement and apology, even if you don't 100% agree with everything they say. You want to actually acknowledge what they've said and apologize for how they're feeling about it.
Yeah, and the feeling is a big part.
That's right.
too.
It's the mea culpa. It's the actually hopping down and the public flogging, as you know, like that's what it is, because that allows you to take the low road, as it were, and
then they'll go high.
they'll try and lift you up from there. So that's the first thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And from there, you really need to assess the situation, like what actually happened, so you can get all the details and what's going wrong, and look for a solution. So how can we fix it? So how can we fix, the tangible pieces of this so that you get the job done the way it was supposed to be done the first time? Absolutely crucial. And then once you got that,
Sorry, mate, for jumping in, but sometimes
you can interrupt my interruption.
Yeah, I'll interrupt your interruption. Is with that assessment, it's actually asking some questions, not just about what happened in terms of the logistics of the job, but hey, what impact does that have on you?
Yeah.
How are you feeling about that? So you actually understand some of the other costs they've endured.
Well, that's it. Because when we talk about the solution, it's not just the solution for those tangibles, like we said, but it's the solution for the intangibles. The emotional, mental side of it. You want to be able to, try to put that at rest too. And I think I would definitely be asking questions. What do you think has gone wrong here? Point out everything. Because the thing is that think about that concrete contractor. They might have gone around and had a look at the driveway and thought, this part's not so good or that part could be better, but there might be a bunch of other parts of it that you're also unhappy with, and so giving you the opportunity to point out everything that's not so good means that they can fix everything that's on your mind, not just do, the bare minimum and then still leave you unhappy. So it's really important you assess that correctly through questioning, find out everything they're unhappy about, both physically and mentally, emotionally, and then you put your solutions in place, but then you implement it, which is step 3. Actually make those changes, make those fixes. And then we get to step 4.
Which is compensation and extra mile. So that's kind of part of implementation. So the implementation is putting it right in the sense of doing what you said you'd do, so it doesn't actually cost the client anymore. And then the extra mile is the payment for the frustration.
Yeah.
And so what else can you do for the client that they feel like you really love them?
Yeah.
And it might be as simple as a dinner voucher for a small job. A great example, on the same house build, there was a little bit of imperfection in the It sounds like I'm a really fussy client. I should stop right here. I'm probably a terrible client. I apologise to all the contractors, building contractors,
Well, it's
general
hard when
contractors.
you know what you're looking at, right?
I know. When you're kind of involved with it, you tend to be a bit more fussy. But there was a bunch of imperfections in the garage concrete. And the building contractor was like, yeah, I see that. Not what we wanted. Hey, what I'm going to do is I'm going to carpet the whole garage. That's wow factor. That's amazing. I love that. I really respect that. And that's like going the extra mile. Now, it's a bit of money, but it's not that much money relative to the house build.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's compensation and extra mile.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think from there we go to step 5, which is follow up and feedback. Now, honestly, in this case, this can feel a little bit like drinking a cup of cold sick, because you've just finally got this all sorted and you're like, oh, I've got that out of my life. No, you don't. You still need to do more work to follow this up, get the feedback, make sure that this time around they are happy, that it's still working out, that nothing's gone wrong since. It's like your after sales service that you would normally do, but it's that touch of class where you're making sure that not only I've put it right, but it's continued to stay right. You're happy, everything's good now. Is you sure there's nothing else we can do? I just want to make this perfect. And get their feedback on not just the process, but their feedback on the way that you dealt with that, because again, that puts a lot of goodwill into the air and into their head as well. Because I think the thing is, everybody understands that you make mistakes. That's actually a very understandable thing. Your client can get to understand that. And I think the true mark of integrity is how you deal with the mistakes you make. And so I think, when you're asking for feedback, getting them to actually actively think about the way you dealt with those mistakes can then completely switch them from someone who was unhappy to being a raving fan, because they're like, hey, you know what? Mistakes were made, but man, they did a good job fixing them. So I think that's really, really crucial.
Yeah, and this gives you the opportunity to be amazing.
Yeah.
That's the key thing. And that's how you take the frustrated, disappointed client and turn them into a raving fan, because they're like, they did everything to make this right. I feel really good about this. I understand it was a difficult situation, but they did right by me, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And so that's how you create the amazing experience for the client. And just one thing here is, the bigger the mistake, the bigger the fix that it needs to be.
Absolutely.
And the bigger the wow factor and the extra mile. That's really important to understand. On a large job, a coffee voucher
It's not enough.
It's not going to cut it where it might on a small job, if you know what I mean. So you've
Yeah.
got to be really mindful of that.
Yeah, totally. So I think all in all, we've got some really, really good stuff here for how to deal with the complaints.
Got to
And-
understand what's going on in the head.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
the key.
Yeah, so I think if you follow that process, you'll nail it. So let's land this plane.
Yeah, so when things go wrong on the job, which happens to all of us, it is truly the putting right that counts. But putting it right involves a whole lot more than it appears at first glance. Now, if you're understanding the client's experience fully, you'll be in a position to turn a bad situation into one where the client becomes a raving fan. Thanks heaps for listening. We'll catch you all again next time.
See you later.
Congratulations on being part of a select group of savvy business owners who are taking their businesses to the next level. And to help you on your journey, don't forget to check out our show notes for a copy of our free book, The Profitable Tradie, and other valuable resources. Thanks for being a part of this special group, and we'll see you in the next episode of the Profitable Tradie podcast.